Okay, so welcome again to the BCS Ethics Group. This is a combined meeting. It's going to have a talk about WhistleblowersUK, which has been deferred to the end of the meeting as far as there's been technical glitch for Georgina. So she'll join us when she's got that sorted out. So we'll do the first part of it, which is looking at the ethics committee, with a standard order of things that the BCS requires us to do each year. So in the meeting chat, I put the AGM agenda. So in terms of people, so I'm Neil Gordon, the current chair of the ethics group. There's a few other committee members here. If you want to maybe introduce yourselves, committee members, just unmute and say who you are and what your current role is.
Hello, I'm Adem Satel. I'm just a member of the group currently. I work at a company called Knight Frank and I just do data parts.
Hi, I'm Meng. I'm currently the early career advocate of the group, and I'm also the early career advocate of the BCS Open Source Specialist Group.
Hello, my name is Björn Stahl. I'm a member of the committee, and in my day job, I'm a professor at the University of Nottingham.
Thanks. I think so. Maria was here earlier as well. And there's a few other people who want to join the committee later on. So the previous meeting, I circulated those minutes by email earlier today. There wasn't much from them in terms of actual actions, but okay, when my computer opens it. If I share my my screens to the meeting last year was in November. Again, it was a fairly short meeting. It was the first AGM we'd had for a while. So it was a chance for us just to re-establish the committee. So last year would say fairly minimal in terms of actions or things from that. We explained the point of the committee in last year. Last year we spoke about the white paper we were preparing about the AI and high stakes technology and how we live with them for the BCS, and some of the activities that we've done in the previous year. So I guess formally we say people are happy with the minutes. I've seen them. If there are any corrections or queries with them, you can post a meeting chat or let us know. Don't need to necessarily vote on the minutes, but so any issues of accuracy or queries from the minutes?
No.
Okay, and then yeah, to the matters arising, what matters arising from that. So that was fairly brief. I've done a report on the chair's report, which follows a pattern of BCS. So you may have seen this before if you're BCS members on other groups. So this last year I've been the chair. Gillian Arnold, who was BCS president 2 years ago, she's been our treasurer. Paul Rowley was our secretary. I'll mention a bit about Paul in a moment. Chris Mercer's our inclusion officer. Meng, who's on this meeting, and a colleague Tunda, our early careers advocates. And we had Adam, Darren, Don, Marina, Bern, Anna, Luke, Maria, Jonathan, and Mutassim as the other committee members last year. should report on that. One very sad thing last year was we lost Paul. He died unfortunately last year. So it was in, I think, March he died, although we didn't discover that until later on. So we not had a secretary, actively secretary for that period. We did pass our condolences on to Paul's family and his colleagues. So that was very unfortunate. He'd been getting more active in organising things for the committee. So and again, the committee had a minute silence for Paul earlier in this year. Then one for us to report on his successes. So in my report, I've noted that the committee's been working more effectively as a sort of working group now. We've got various people, Adam, Meng, Bernd, Gillian, Chris, Marina, Maria, all doing various things as part of committee, other people giving us a lot of input. Don, who's not here, I think, today, he's been doing a lot of work for us looking at the BCS Code of Conduct. So there's been a lot more activity as a group, and that's really good to see. One major thing we did in the 2023-24 period was we did publish a report following the BCS member survey on AI and ethics and living with high-stakes technology. If you've not seen it yet, I'll put a link in here and put a meeting chat in a moment. So that was published by the BCS. It was used in some press releases by the BCS. It's been part of various activities. We did some sessions around that. Also, Adam, Burns and myself did a talk about it at the BCS 2024 Inspire e-learning conference back in October. And that should appear in the proceedings of that later on in the coming year. We also were able to hold our first face-to-face workshop sometime this year. So we had a workshop on ethics and the Horizon scandal, which was last month, November. That was quite a significant workshop. It's our first face-to-face meeting for a long time. I can't remember the exact numbers who were there. I don't know if Adam, you counted on a better estimate, but it was 60 people who were pre-registered, and the room was pretty full. So I estimate were 40 to 50 people there in the room. And then again, there were over 100 people who registered online to join that. Again, I don't know on the day how many actually were online, but it was significant. That included a presentation from Lee Castleton, who you may have heard of. He was one of the sub-postmasters who lost his job. He lost a court case initially against Post Office following the Horizon scandal, where the faulty software and evidence derived from that was used to prosecute him. So it's really very emotional talk. I think we had Adam, but it was really so fascinating and sad to hear the impacts of technology on somebody when it goes wrong. And that's the idea we had of how this links to ethics and about the duty of people. Also links with whistleblowing, which again, hopefully we'll be able to hear from Georgina later. Again, where people know with our issues, what should we do about it? But the session included also Carl Flinders, who was the chief reporter for Computing Weekly. He took part in a Q&A session. Again, he'd been investigating the Horizon scandal since, I think, 2010. We've written various things about it. And again, it's interesting to hear his experiences, including the quite forceful approaches from Post Office and its legal team for him to sort of cease and desist the investigations, claiming things, again, about the way the investigation was happening, but he's able to tell us sort of what weren't true, but was used to try and force them to drop that issue. So again, you could hear the kind of way that institutions can behave in potentially unethical, unreasonable ways, which again was why it was very relevant to our group. Also, this last year, we did some work with John Jeffrey of Central BCS, who established a community site. So hopefully most of you are part of that. So there's community.bcs.org, which your BCS credentials should get you into. It can be a bit awkward joining groups in there, but if you search for ethics, you can find our community site, and it does have some posts on there. So people like Meng have put posts on there about the early careers. We have posts about computing education and ethics, various things about resources for ethics itself. So again, if you've got the chance to contribute to that, that'd be really, really good to see. As a chair, other things to report on, sort of planned activity. Again, following this meeting, I think we're looking at some more online members meetings around ethics topics. And again, one thing following this meeting, if any of you, and I'll put it on the ethics general group list as well, have ideas for things we could do get in touch. In particular, if anyone wants to volunteer to do something, that's even better. And volunteer to organise something, that's ideal. So if you want to help, that'd be great. If it's things you think we could do tell us about it, and we'll see what we can organise. The other thing we plan to do now is have some physical meetings, and again, have ethics as that topic, and potentially run a competition. So we have be looking at ways we can engage with different groups of people. One thing that some of the other BCS specialist groups do is run competitions. Some are based for students, have a school or college or university, all of them. Some are general, and they look at things on different topics relevant to the group. So we're thinking of having some sort of ethics-based competitions. One thing some committee members have suggested is having like a hackathon on ethics topics. I think Don mentioned that's something that the ACM have done in America quite effectively. So it's something we're going to look at doing in the coming year. A key thing we're looking at in the coming year is improving our visibility. We're working with the IT Now publication of BCS, having more ethics content in there. Several committee members are working on a book for BCS around getting started with tech ethics. And also in January, Gillian and myself, and potentially other committee members, were planning to do a session for teachers as part of the Competing at School network on the community curriculum and the ethics content in that. The final thing for my report on things to plan activity for next year is developing links with other groups as well. So 2025, I think the scope to do that with some other international working groups. So you may be familiar with the IFIP, International Federation of Information Processing. That's kind of the global body that looks at computing. The BCS are the UK sort of members of that body. I think the ACM have a similar thing for America. So looking to work with working groups of IFIP. Partly because I've just made chair of one of the working groups of IFIP. So I'm thinking we can then combine the two. And so the ethics group in the UK can work with the IFIP group on computing and society and look at how we can do some events with a wider impact. I think impediments, obviously, I think the thing that challenges us as a committee is always going to be time. Committee members do this as just lay members. It's voluntary work that we do, have our day jobs. So whilst we have a lot of commitment, it's always a challenge. And again, I think particularly this last year, losing Paul as we did has had a big impact because we didn't have an actual active secretary. And similarly, organising events is more difficult. We couldn't have a vacancy for events coordinator and similarly for comms coordinator as well. So that's kind of the things to report on. Facts and figures, just to say, I think we had 16 active members in the committee last year. Again, because of issues with timing and workload, probably about a third of us turn up for regular meetings. Again, really positive is to our specialist group membership has gone up this last year. It's now 485 members. So that's a lot of people across the BCS, which is international in its membership. So most are UK based, but it has international members. So that's positive to see as well. And again, from my report for BCS, I've noticed again, thanks to the BCS groups team and HQ team for helping us actually maintain and organise things. So that's the chairman's report. If any questions on that, feel free to raise your hand or post it in the meeting chat. I'll stop sharing for now. So yeah, if any questions on that, let me know. Albert.
Yeah, I'd like to add something which I haven't reported yet because it only happened yesterday. But I represented the group at the Digital Ethics Summit in London yesterday. That's an event that was organized by Tech UK and had a very strong industry and policy representation. And I was on a panel on, it was called Meet the AI Ethicist, with a couple of actual AI ethicists who do this for a living, and somebody who runs an AI ethicist association, which I had no idea existed. So I guess that should go somewhere in the activities of the last year.
That's very good to hear. Thanks, Bernd. So if you can write so briefly in a paragraph and send it to me, and I'll add it to the meeting notes.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to send a few words to James Woodward, and I'll copy you in.
Okay. Again, someone messaged me, so I'll just add another thing. If you want to contact me directly, BCS is quite secretive on email sometimes. So my email address is my work one's on the meeting chat now. So if anyone has contact points, you can use that. Say Georgina's come back, so welcome back, Georgina. We've got the AGM for now, so I'll finish the AGM element, and then we can switch back to your talk, hopefully. So in terms of the Treasurer's report, I think Jill couldn't be here tonight unless she's appeared, but I don't think so. No, so Gillian was our Treasurer. From the Treasury point of view, there's not much report for the last year. We actually didn't put a budget request in the end, so we ran very efficiently for the BCS with zero money in. In spite of that, we did actually put in some specialist requests for the Horizon event, and then an ad hoc request for the coming year until we get the new budget year in. So there was no spend yet apart from the Horizon event, which was funded by a special grant from BCS, which paid for the travel expenses for those of us from up north, that's coming out of London, and it paid the fees for Lee to be able to contribute, and some expenses for the pizza, wine, and drinks. But Adam and people can maybe attest to the quality. So that was good. But treasurer-wise, there's a lot of support for last year. For this coming year, again, the plan would be to put in a budget request to fund some in-person events, possibly at HQ, possibly try and do a few around the country. And again, if people have ideas for where we might host something, do let us know. The other report that's due is yeah, it's a secretary report. I actually did that in my report, given the sad loss of Paul this year. The next item is election of officers and committee members. So I have a summary of the committee. So if I share my screen yet again. Okay, so the slightly small. I've got the roles on the left, the 2024 committee in the middle, and the current nominations on the right. So the nominations are primarily people who've from committee who've asked to stand again. Some people haven't been in touch. It may well be they decide to stand again, but if they've not given us details yet, we've not assumed it. So we can see about adding that later on. In terms of substantive roles, I'm happy to stand as chair again. Jill's happy to stand as treasurer again. Chris as inclusion officer. Adam has kindly offered to stand forward as the secretary this year. Meng and Tunde as our early careers advocates again. And then we've got Darren, Don, Marina, Bern, Maria as continue on committee. And Pierre Morel has offered to join committee this year as a new member. So there haven't been any other nominations before today, and there's no clashes of roles. So I know some committees I'm on, we can sort of do things as kind of a bulk in a sense. So we can either go through and individually nominate and second and vote, or if the people are happy in principle, we can nominate en masse. So if somebody wants to, probably me, I collected it effectively secretary this year. So if someone from committee wants to nominate that group, and then we can have a online vote to confer them or not. Is that okay? So would someone like to nominate?
Yeah, I will nominate the group as shown on the screen.
Thanks, Ben. That's easier. So and again, if I think if people want to if you support it, if you raise your virtual hand in Zoom, if you can see the reaction button. It's not quite anonymous voting. If you raise your hands and we can see if you're happy to. Yeah, so seven hands and one clap. 8 hands. Yeah, it might be a case of working on this next year for a better way to organise that. Okay, are there any anyone against those nominations? So if there are any concerns, yeah, if that's the case, you're not eligible to vote. Yeah, thanks for coming in chat and we support it. If anybody in a meeting would like to stand on committee, put a nomination in during the meeting itself, or if you're considering it, message me afterwards, or message Adam afterwards, and we can look at inviting you on the committee later on. So I'll stop sharing. And then the last bit of the so given the we can give votes there, we'll take the positions as voted for. No business was identified to me, so we can close the AGM there. And all being well, if Georgina's managed to deal with the technical glitches, we'll return to the plan talk from Georgina. Georgina, welcome back. So Georgina, make you co-host again. You should be able to start your presentation. So Adam, do you want to introduce Georgina and we'll see if this works now?
Sure. Get my prepared script. So good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce Georgina Halford-Hall. She is the CEO and founding member of WhistleblowersUK, a not-for-profit organisation which, as its new tagline states, is to educate, support, champion whistleblowing. The organisation is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. Georgina is also the Director of Strategy and Policy for the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Whistleblowing. Georgina is internationally recognised thought leader and spokesperson on whistleblowing. Within her professional career, she has been had a HR background. Her career has spanned military, financial services, civil service, and the charity sector. She's an entrepreneur and troubleshooter, specialising in corporate governance, complex investigations, and dispute resolution. One of Georgina's greatest achievements is leading the development of the whistleblowing bill, which is currently under consideration by the government, and establishing the Whistleblower Awareness Week, which is mainly most of this talk will be about as well, in the UK parliamentary calendar. So please welcome Georgina. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Adam. Could you tell me, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
And you can see the front slide?
First slide, yes.
Oh, good. Sorry, everybody. It seems quite bizarre, and thank you for your warm welcome and your patience with my IT incapabilities that I have described. I have demonstrated very aptly tonight, but I think it's something to do with Microsoft and an update that's not gone well, according to my able assistant, Ali. So as we're running somewhat late and I've delayed you, I will try and speed up and speak with my usual, I hope, passion about this subject. But IT sector workers, this week, when I've just checked tonight, are now at 11% of our intake for people reporting or asking for help through our platform alone. That's without the things we get through phone calls, MP referrals, or from LinkedIn. This is a huge jump. About a year ago, it was probably 1 or 2%, but to jump this high this quickly tells you something about what's happening in tech. And I think tech's probably one of the single most ethical sectors that I've come across, and it gives me great pleasure and a warm feeling to think that people at the cutting edge of basically everything that we do, from food production to the delivery of healthcare, banking, financial services, gas, and oil, every single company, every single sector relies on tech. And seeing so many people who are ethical, want to do the right thing, want to develop the future in this area is brilliant. So I wasn't surprised that when we set up our working groups, we called them focus groups, but we've decided to rename them working groups because actually we don't want talking shops. We want people who are actually prepared to say, I've got an idea, we're going to run with it and let's see where it goes. Because that's what Whistleblower is all about. It's about innovation. It's about passion, and it's about creating a world around us that's not fixed to support whistleblowers, because everything's moving all of the time. And I think whistleblowers in tech, whether they know it or not, are probably some of the least protected people, because many of you have embraced this new way of working as your own company, as an independent practitioner, as a contractor, whatever it may be. But everybody who is outside IR35 under the existing legislation is simply not protected. And that means that we're not protecting some of this, what I'm seeing as some of the most ethical people in our workplace. And I want to start by talking a bit, before I talk to you about the bill, why the bill's important. And I don't know how many of you have heard of N-Chain. It's sort of taken up quite a lot of digital press at the moment, because a guy called Christian Ager Hansen was one of the directors there at N-Chain, and it looked like it was going to be a really great crypto organized, crypto. I don't want to call it a bank. I don't know what to call it really, but it's financial services. And over the last few months, there's been a number of really high profile court cases because they got into a fight at the board level when Christian discovered that the premise upon which this entire cryptocurrency business had been set up was a lie. One of the directors claimed to be, I've got it written down because I really struggle with saying it, I don't want to insult anybody, Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, despite a huge sort of cyber campaign against Christian and against anybody who supported him, including myself and my organisation, the judge found that the allegations that had been brought forward by Christian, or the concerns, were completely and utterly correct. That the directors who claimed to be Satoshi were not. And the whole premise for this huge fraud or deception was to gain control of Satoshi Nakamoto's 1 million Bitcoin currency. And the value of it was about $100 million. And the ongoing impact of that would be inflate the value of N-Chain. So the net effect of this fraud is estimated to be around $1 trillion. Could be one of the biggest frauds the world has seen, let alone the country. So I'm not surprised it's not on the front page of every newspaper, at least not yet, on the grounds that most people don't understand this stuff. It looks like, a rather sleazy fight between greedy people, because let's face it, people who work in this industry tend to earn quite a lot of money. People in Bitcoin seem to be doing really, really well for themselves. But what was really significant, and the reason I bring this to you, is that the timeline was quite short. 29th of September 2023, Christian made a protected disclosure using the Public Interest Disclosure Act, because we're trading in the UK, he's working in the UK, to his employers. Because being a director and being an employee, you have some rights. But they immediately cut him out of everything. But he'd already shared the evidence with journalists, amongst other people, because it was exceptionally serious. And that is the barometer for which the court looks at for exposing information to journalists, because nobody else was going to take any notice. So the judge in this particular case in August this year found against nChain, the directors there, and went so far as to refer to them as liars, talked about forgery, fabrication of evidence, and lies. And then went as far as to refer them to the Crown Prosecution Service. Now, this didn't happen in the Employment Tribunal. It happened in the higher courts, which is perhaps the reason that the seriousness of it was identified, because in the courts as they sit at the moment, you cannot bring they have no statutory powers to escalate anywhere. It's down to the whistleblower, which is why we see things going wrong. But the people involved in all of this didn't stop at that. They've continued their campaign against Christian, against his family. They've brought bankruptcy proceedings against him on a costs order. Everything will be overturned. And I'm hoping that he'll come and talk to you at one of your near meetings. But the people behind it and their online manipulation of data and sending out fake news, all of these things that are really in your purview more than in most people's, are really important. Now, why I wanted to bring this up is that we've got some big changes that we're putting into our bill. And I'm going to turn to that to sort of explain, and I'll put some other bits and pieces and examples into it. But please ask me questions as we go. I much prefer an interactive experience to anything else. And I know that my PowerPoint is now going to play up again. Is it moving?
No.
Right. Let's stop sharing. Or in fact, I'm just going to talk you through it, because the general thoughts are that we already protect whistleblowers. I think I've set the scene for that and said, no, they don't. I'm going to send out the slides afterwards. 86% of the claims that come to the UK courts fail. And there are about 50,000 a year that start, a much smaller percentage than that actually end up in courts. But whistleblowers then end up gagged, who haven't got as far as court or get into a settlement. And there's no point beating around the bush. Tech companies have got very deep pockets, and we've seen it over and over again. I've been sat in cases where settlements are being offered, in 5, 6, 7 million pounds. Just making sure that's not somebody from your lots. Right, okie dokes. So the existing legislation, why does it fail? Why do we need new legislation in Office of the Whistleblower? Well, there are a whole range of reasons. The law's been in place for 26 years. Only workers are protected, and so lots of people in the tech sector aren't. Disclosures have to be made to a prescribed person. Can anybody on this call and this meeting tell me, are you a prescribed person or do you know one? Come on. I'm open to conversation.
Like within our own company or within?
Are you a prescribed person, or is anyone you know who do you know who is a prescribed person?
Yeah.
Right, prescribed person, exactly. This is all part of the law that's been there for 26 years, designed to protect you. If you do not make your protected disclosure to a prescribed person, guess what the court will say? Accept you made one, but to the wrong person, it doesn't count. It's really, really a ridiculous law. You're set up to fail from the outset. I'll come on to prescribed persons. Litigation's complex, expensive, it can take years. most whistleblowers have got very limited knowledge. You have to become an expert in this law overnight. That means you can't work because it is a full-time job in itself. But the biggest problem we have is that the whistleblowing itself isn't acted upon. The law as it stands looks at one thing and one thing only, and that is it turns a serious concern, in your cases, a concern about ethics or lack of ethics or fraud in the tech sector, into an employment dispute. Was it your protected disclosure, your whistleblowing, that caused you to have a detriment, that you're being fired, demoted, moved, something awful's happening to you, being discriminated against in some way? So we've come up using a whole range of people, including our tech working group, to look at what a whistleblowing bill needs to contain. And the bill that will be taken back into Parliament on the 18th of December by Gavin Snell, who's the chair of the all-party group for whistleblowing, he has got a bill that comprehensively defines whistleblowers. Existing bill doesn't do that. It also defines what whistleblowing is and who you can blow the whistle to. So a prescribed person at the moment is everything from an MP, a police officer, a member of your board, perhaps your chief executive officer, a solicitor. It's really quite limited. The bill extends all of that, and it provides statutory powers to actually protect whistleblowers from detriment. So we stop it before it starts. And it has powers to award compensation. Now, I call this restitution because I think it's really important that we're not looking at this as a get-rich-quick scheme. It's really about you're doing the right thing and you're being protected from detriment, and the office has the powers to step in quickly to ensure that any losses that you may have incurred, including future losses, can be resolved. And it's also going to have statutory powers to investigate penalties. Now, why is this relevant to you? Well, number one, it takes a pro to catch a pro. This is a technical, complex area, a bit like financial services. What we are going to be, I hope, encouraging in future months will be that people who work in the tech sector will be getting themselves up to speed to be proper forensic investigators, because the Office of the Whistleblower is going to need a lot of people who are contracted into it when needed to come and investigate complex crimes like this, or complex fraud, whatever it may be. It's all part of thinking outside of the box, not having an office full of millions of people, but an office that is agile and competent and trusted. Because a big thing that you will have seen, I'm sure many of you in your careers, is where there's an investigation, everyone goes, oh yeah, that's in the top drawer. And there's plenty of evidence that that has happened. And I think this sector could be really open to it, because lots of people will be saying to the big tech companies, it'd be great to be on your books, Google, or wherever it may be. It'll be great to be on your books at Amazon or all these big companies, because they pay well. But the reality is, this is actually good for business. It's good for the sector to have people who are ethical, and knowing that you have an Office of the Whistleblower that imposes duties on people to be ethical. And it also will capture and report back to government and police and other regulators where it can identify a pattern of behaviour. For instance, the Post Office Horizon. You can't talk about whistleblowing without talking about that. If we'd had an Office of the Whistleblower, the kind of expertise that is in this meeting would have been picking this up, and if they were being pushed back by their organisation, I'm absolutely certain that most of you, if not all of you, would have been contacting the Office of the Whistleblower, who would have said, wait a minute, we might have 3 or 4 that are wrong, 5, 10, 500, no chance. So these are the sort of principles. The principal duty of this office is to protect whistleblowers and oversee the process of whistleblowing. So the objectives of the whistleblower: to encourage people to report by protecting and supporting whistleblowing, to implement a fair process. And we're not saying one that's stuck in stone, one that's going to be properly evaluated regularly and changed where it needs to change. It's being driven by the people using it. And ensure that wrongdoers are not taxpayers pay for this, because this is about an additional layer to identify people who are doing the wrong thing at an earlier time, because the cost to the taxpayer, I forget how many, probably billions that it is now, that we're paying across just the things we know about. The maternity scandal, you know, they put aside over 13 billion a year for that, out of the budget for the NHS. These are huge figures. So ensuring that concerns are investigated properly sits right at the centre of this, because anybody who speaks up in the public interest is interested in an outcome. And when you hear about people who've gone, you know, perhaps behaving strangely, and some people might call them nuts, they're not. They are totally frustrated because they blew the whistle about a green fountain pen when it should be a blue one, and nobody has changed the ink in the pen. It's that straightforward. And I think anybody who gets into this recognises that in the end, it becomes like a war of attrition. The organisations are looking at how much is it going to cost to get rid of them, whereas the individual saying, but I only wanted you to put it right and I just want to go back to work. So it's about stopping the use of taxpayers' money to pay NDAs and settlement agreements. And it's an office that focuses very much on getting the understanding of what is going on, investigation of it, holding people to account, and ensuring that the public understand understand the law. A one-stop shop. That's what Lord Berkeley calls it. So the functions of the office, straightforward: setting minimum standards, monitoring and enforcing compliance, prosecuting offences, but with proper supervision, providing an independent disclosure and reporting service, giving advice and support to whistleblowers, sharing information with government and other regulators, and promoting awareness and providing this safety net for everybody. They can have lots of powers to issue information notices, because we all know that people hide data. And then, talking of hiding data and going back to this whole scope around the ethics of IT, we have found that using some of the professionals that work with us, documents that have been manipulated. And who do you think manipulates the most? Would you say it is the organisations or the solicitors or lawyers? Come on.
Lawyers.
I'm afraid so. It is indeed. But that's only the ones we've seen so far. I'm quite sure we've seen a few where people in organisations, chief executives or senior people, think it's okay to change a few dates and, whether a meeting actually happened or not, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. And in the employment tribunal, they've taken the approach that, well, we can't disprove it, so we'll just have to accept that on the balance of probabilities that it's honest. But we're finding evidence over and over again that isn't, and it's just resulted in our first six-figure award of compensation to somebody. So sorry, Adam.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was kind of very similar in our hybrid event our physical event that we had with Lee Castleton, the sub postmaster, which Dawn actually kind of came to as well. One of the things they kind of raised on that side as well was kind of what the post office was getting from their lawyers was literally them telling them, destroy all the evidence, do whatever you can to get rid of that, and try and even like have your meetings as walking meetings or something like that, so then you don't have to even take minutes, so there's no evidence on this. So again, it was from the advice of solicitors as well, their kind of legal team, not to do those things. So again, it's kind of works hand in hand on that side as well.
It is, and Lee, I knew you'd spoken to Lee, so I don't want to sort of go back over that ground again. And he's captivating in the way he speaks. But it's the same in the NHS. It's the same in tech. At the moment, I've got some tech stuff where, believe it or not, tech organisations have been manipulating data as well. But you just have to have somebody cleverer than the ones who've been manipulating it in order to get to a point where somebody can make a decision on it. Does anyone have any questions at this point before I sort of push on to what I would call our call to action? I know you probably want to get to your tea.
I think Lucy had a question in the chat.
Can't see the chat. Would you read it out for me, Adam, please?
Yes, Lucy said, will you have powers to request software engineering artifacts from organisations, like evidence and issues?
Repeat that again.
Will you have powers to request software engineering artifacts from organisations, evidence in issues?
I think we will, because the action notice and information notices, an action notice would be to disclose certain information. So I would say they will do, because data, we'll be looking here at data rather than just documents. And I think that is the future of where it's going. We have got a case that's been running for a very long time with somebody who should be a member of your organisation, in total honesty, who's a forensic accountant. And when we asked for metadata in that case, there was a huge fuss, and there's still an ongoing fuss, even though some of it we've got quite clearly shows that evidence has been manipulated, it's been deleted, a whole range of things. But it takes tech experts to be able to do that, which is I'm sort of crying out to you to say, please take interest in this. Sorry, Bernd.
Yeah, one question is how big will this office be? So it says small and agile, but roughly how many people do you think are going to work for it?
Well, if you take places like the Securities Investment Commission, SEC in the States, they've got in their whistleblowing team a couple of dozen people. There's an awful lot of shared working, because as I think it'll be small. There will obviously be a lot of people at the beginning, but this is where I come on to the bit that I'm excited about, and that's the ethical use of AI. Because
so then I have a follow-up question. At the event I was at yesterday, there was a panel of regulators, including something I'd never heard of before, I didn't know existed, a Digital Regulation Cooperation Forum. And
right.
I was wondering whether your office would be part of that as well.
To be honest with you, I really don't know. We're not at that point. I'm coming to that bit in a second about my part of the call to action from this group is to join all those dots together. I think that if it was me doing it, I would be looking at all of the expertise there, how you join the dots, rather than create one great big island, because that's what it'll grow into. Actually, this idea of being agile and using the expertise of other people, not reinventing the wheel, keeping it fresh. That's going to be a big challenge, because that's really sort of counterintuitive for governments, because people like territory. It'll be interesting to see how it does develop. So in terms of, I talked about my call to evidence. I think I better talk about penalties as well, because we've put it into the bill that people will be able to, that the office will be able to issue penalties. Everyone's interested in that. Now, in the bill as it stands at the moment, it's recommended 50,000 for individuals. Now, in the tech sector, that's not even a week's salary for some people, and up to 10% of annual global turnover. But with the powers of the Secretary of State to vary this, and I think that I've said before about the financial services sector, there are eye-watering numbers to be collected to go back into the Treasury. I think there are even more in tech. And it's about sending out a message. It's carrot and stick. This incentivizes, this whole bill has been designed around incentivizing people to do the right thing. But with the sting in the tail if you don't. And the honest truth is, I think, across tech is you've got such an amazing and neurodiverse community, probably more so than anywhere else, where people are particularly effective. And working on that and developing the power of that, I think will drive that, it will set standards for other sectors as we go forward. You know, you look at things like the use of AI to data scrape uses, you know, journalism. Journalism has become, you know, a bit of a joke, really. I think that this whole issue around sort of digital assets can be better policed from within your own industry. So part of my call to action for you all is, obviously, we'd like you to support our bill, but we'd like you to recommend improvements. And also join the focus group, working group, I got it wrong myself there, to help design the infrastructure architecture of this. Burn to answer those questions, to not just put the question, because the one thing I've learned about all of the politicians that I work with, and they're mostly really interested, but they're also very busy. So if we make it complicated or leave them with things they have to do, they lose interest. Whereas if we present them with something which is a sort of bill in a box with all the architecture and infrastructure, we have got much more chance of getting it through. And the fact that we have been and are being supported by the Hillsborough Law Group, and Hillsborough Law is about the duty of candour. So all of you ultimately could end up with, because they're saying it's just public sector, it won't stop there. Nothing ever does. It'll be like saying you can't smoke in a hospital, but you can smoke in a pub. You know, it all moved on, didn't it, quickly? That duty of candour will mean that you are obliged to speak the truth. You are obliged to fess up quickly. Whereas if you're not being protected against the potential retaliation, and you think about what happened to Paul Christian, you know, who's been made bankrupt in the UK, I don't think that will last very long, by the way, but that's this position at the moment, that you need something to protect you back to the safety net. And I think that with protecting every whistleblower, that we don't make it an employment issue. We're actually in a position where we harness the power of tech and people working in the tech sector. And that you use AI to be that front end of the office, which keeps the costs down, keeps the standards high, and it helps to walk people through a system. Because I don't know anybody who hasn't got at least one of these things these days. And it wouldn't have been so long ago that when I'd had the computer troubles I had tonight, I'd have just gone and cried. So our call to action is back the bill. And I know that we're supported by the British Computer Society, and on behalf of all of my group and our MPs, I really thank you for that. Join our tech working group, and also, and I'll send you over the link to it again, Adam. In fact, you've got it for our website, you can do it. If you'll complete the whistleblowing survey, and you don't have to be a whistleblower for this, ideally you're not one, because it's all about what do you know about whistleblowing, and what do you think about it? And are some of our ideas any good?
Just put the link in the chat.
Oh, thank you so much. Has anyone got any questions? Because I'm mindful of the time, and I really do want to let you all go.
There's one more, I think, from Shina Matthew Briggs. How are you planning to increase the number of prescribed people and bodies?
To increase them? Well, we're not. Because what we're saying is that the Office of the Whistleblower will have that power, and it will be about, and it will be any person who's realistically somebody. You should say, if you work in a tech company and you've been asked to do something you think is unethical, or like let's look at Horizon here. This is a great time to look at Horizon, that you are one of the people who is monitoring what is going on, and you're getting all of those error messages. And when your boss says delete them, you go, oh, I don't think I should do that. You remonstrate with your boss. Your boss is still quite adamant, I want it, you know, I want it deleted. So this is where you could escalate it to anybody who's reasonable within the organisation. But your boss, because you have told your boss, you have protected yourself because you have told somebody in the organisation. Because it's quite reasonable to expect that that person should do something. That was a bit of a long answer, but I hope I got there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And just another one, I've got one from Neil here. Why do you think there's been such a jump in whistleblowing in the IT tech sector? I wonder if it's publicity of the Horizon scandal that has such an impact.
I think Horizon's really given people confidence. And I think the link between, tech and how it interacts and facilitates so much of the work that we all do or are involved in, it's given people confidence. I think it's also still scared people. Most of the people we've spoken to have spoken with pseudonyms. Some of the people have spoken through voice activate, voice changing technology, good old technology again. There is still a lot of hesitation there, but there's also a lot of ignorance of the law as it stands, that people think they are protected. I have blown the whistle and I can't understand why my case has been struck out. Well, because you're a contractor, not a worker. The new legislation coming in, we've tried to make it really simple. And I know that some of you in this group are real supporters of the stuff we do, and you know it already. But by making it simple and making it obvious, i.e., if I tell my boss that should be the equivalent of a prescribed person, that is the right way to go with this. I was going to say child's play, but they'd probably be much better at this than I am.
Cool. Is there any other questions that anyone would like to ask?
They all want their tea. So it leaves me to say, it leaves me to say, I hope that some of this was useful. I will get the slides out to you. I apologise for my complete rubbish IT skills this evening. Getting my computer to restart after whatever it did to itself, I don't know. But I want to thank you all so much for the support you give us, for the input that we get. We are here to support you if you do need some help. Don't wait till it's a problem. Get in touch. Because often it's just a case of a bit of knowledge does make a lot of difference. And come and get involved. Do the survey. Write to Gareth Snell and tell him how important this is. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Georgina. Thanks, Adam. That's great. And actually, we're 1 minute over our original schedule, so we reversed it a bit and changed it a bit, but we've managed to get back on track. So thanks everyone for taking part this evening. 25 people here still, which is a really good turnout for a BCS event like this. In a meeting chat, I'll post some links and resources that people might find useful. So the ethics landing page for the group, which many of you will know about, but because it was on the general BCS events page, you may not have looked at before. That's our group. The ethics community site that I mentioned in the chairman's report, there's links to the general BCS community site there, which your BCS credentials will get you into. And if you had search for the ethics specialist group in there, you'll find us. The links report from Adam, myself and Julian and other colleagues in the group looking at living with AI. And lastly, if you're interested in joining the committee or have ideas for the committee to follow up, as I mentioned earlier, do get in touch with me. I think some people mentioned in the meeting chat about contacting Georgina, maybe Adam. But the best thing for now for GDPR purposes, if you email me, and I've shared my email address already, I can then pass your details on to Georgina and Adam. Equally, if you have any concerns about whistleblowing incidents you might be considering, but the best thing is to get in touch with us directly, and we can then maybe get Georgina to give you some advice on ways forward on that. So I don't think there's anything else particularly tonight. Anybody got anything you want to add before we close the meeting? So thanks, Georgina. That was really good. It was really interesting to hear and very relevant.